Dan, how are you today?
I'm well, gentlemen. How are you?
All right, buddy.
We are.
Anything new in the last hour?
No. You still talking about this?
Just wondering what else is going on. We got new news breaking. Anything we need to know about?
Not that I know, but I'm sure next hour something will happen. You guys are good.
All right, good. So you're calm today. You basically have said to Tony Petitti of the Big Ten, "Hey man, if Michigan's case is bad, so is what Ohio State, Rutgers, and Purdue is accused of. How and why did you draw the parallels?"
Well, specifically Purdue. I don't know if Ohio State and Rutgers broke any rules. They maybe sportsmanship, which is what we're arguing here, which is a totally nebulous concept. But let me start with this, because people get a little sideways. Michigan cheated, okay? Connor Stallions broke the rules, unless we're going to hear some outrageous flip that he didn't do it. They can punish him, all that. He had an elaborate, brazen advanced scouting, in-person scouting operation going. I equate that to a smash and grab, a ski mask going in to rob the bank. What Purdue did was an inside job, white-collar crime. They get Ohio State and Rutgers to just hand them the same information, which is in-person scouted sign stealing so that they have an advantage in the game or even it out against Michigan. At the end of the day, both sides, Purdue and Michigan in this, did the exact same thing. They wound up with the exact same thing. They just did it in different manners. One sent their friends out with iPhones. The other just had their friends and the other coaching staffs just hand them the information. It's all stolen signs, and it's all done by somebody who was at a game in person before you got to play. You didn't do any of the work. So I understand that. Here's the thing. 3 weeks ago, nobody cared about sign stealing. Nobody cared. Nobody thought about it. Nobody had looked at these rules in years. Nobody cared. Now, all of a sudden, everybody cares. And I don't think anyone's thought through maybe all of the things. Certainly not the way the Big Ten and the NCAA charged in their hair on fire like this was the biggest thing ever. So what coaches will tell you is, hey, it's not advanced scouting if my friend just hands me the signs that they stole from watching the game or off of TV, because we've always done that.
You get into there's kind of like crazy minutia when you get to the cheating stuff, right? I mean, you've got
it's what's an advanced scout, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you hear all the time that, hey, coaches will say, yeah, look, we've had a few weeks to prepare for we're getting ready for Alabama in the bowl game, and I reached out to Lane Kiffin because they played Alabama 6 weeks ago, and Lane and I have a good relationship, and I just wanted to pick his brain about different concepts and schemes and what works and what doesn't work. And that's all acceptable. Everybody's like, oh, that's good. You're reaching out to your resources. But it changes if during that conversation, he's like, yeah, let me send you a spreadsheet that we have that actually deciphers what the signs are. And it is, so we've seen online, there's been this spreadsheet that's going on. Are you privy to, in your investigation, have you found more evidence? Like allegedly there's some text messages that go back and forth. What do you know about all that stuff?
Well, I mean, these were straight play sheets, pictures. Hey, when they do this, this is what their sign is, all of that. It's good information. It's also information that two professional coaching staffs, or college, but these are professional coaches, battle tested in a game, right? They sat there and said, okay, we think every time the guy, waves this way, they run this play. Sure enough, they did, right? The question, and this is the thing, nobody cared about this and no one thought about it. But if we're going to get down now to a legal case, which it very well may be, and probably will be, what's the definition of in-person scouting? So for Michigan, it's Connor Stalions' buddies standing in a stadium somewhere with an iPhone filming. That's wrong. I think that's obviously in-person scouting. I think the intent was obvious, all of that. In Purdue's case, It's the coaching staffs or some member of the coaching staff of Ohio State and Rutgers. Those are their in-person advanced scouts. Who qualifies as an in-person advanced scout? You can't change the definition of what an agent for Purdue is or an agent for Michigan just because the coaches say, oh, we've always done that. The coaches don't get to define the rule. It's going to be defined by a judge, or if this had been smart, it had been clearly thought through by the people at the Big Ten and the NCAA and said, wait a minute, we're opening a hornet's nest. These guys share each other's signs all the time. They literally just email them. They have shared Google Docs. They have all of this stuff. What is an in-person scout? And I know we're deep in the minutia, but that's the deal. If you're Michigan, you're saying, what are they doing? It's the same thing. I just think common sense. I don't care what happens to Jim Harbaugh. I think he's got plenty of violations here that could be punished, all sorts of stuff. I don't care what happens to Michigan. But I'm not a fan of bad administrating or rushes to judgment or not thought through penalties. You can't say this type of in-person scouting is the worst scandal we've ever seen, and this type of in-person scouting is totally fine because it's just boys being boys. That's how we do things. That doesn't work. It shouldn't work. And if anyone was thinking this through, instead of running around going crazy and just listening to the howls of college football coaches who understandably just want Jim Harbaugh gone. I wouldn't want Jim Harbaugh's opinion on anything in East Lansing or Columbus, right? That's where you run into Pandora's box or bad precedent and all this. To me, it's all in-person scouting. Purdue, Michigan did the exact same thing right now. The NCAA and Big Ten are going after one school. They ain't touching the other. Why?
Well, they also just got the information, didn't they?
Well, look, they got it Friday, supposedly. When they got the Michigan information, they ran out and said, we have to tell everybody because we don't want any Michigan opponent to think that Michigan has an unfair advantage, right?
Right.
Did they do that with Purdue? Did they tell anybody? We haven't heard that.
If they're under the assumption that it was a collaborative effort between Rutgers and Ohio State to give Purdue the advantage solely against Michigan, it looks like it's more of a one-off than what Michigan was doing, which was, a concentrated effort.
Are they investigating to see whether it's a one-off?
So,
that's it. Like the reaction is hard. Will they come in now? Sure. If they do, great. I just think it's the same. It's the same crime. It's a different way of stealing. It's the same. What was stolen is exactly the same. It's just done in two different ways. One that the coaches approve of, one that they don't.
Tony Petitti, he may hand down a suspension today, tomorrow. What are your thoughts on
tomorrow?
What are your thoughts on what he is going to do and what he should do?
I don't know what he's going to do. Certainly, a season-long indefinite suspension is on the table. It may end up, that may have been bluffing. They could try 3. They could try 2 games. They could do nothing. I don't know. I don't really care what they do or what they should. I just think they should be thinking through a lot of stuff that hasn't been thought through because nobody ever spent any time going, what is sign stealing? What is in-person scouting? This is just such a part of the rule book that no one paid any attention to until 3 weeks ago. And all I would ask, whatever the penalty is, but if I'm a fan of a league, you just want a system or a thoughtful process because today it might be fun because it's Michigan, but next time it's you. And bad precedent and lack of due process or lack of thinking through what we're doing or investigations that just assume one side of things and go rushing in and don't contemplate the others or aren't fair never really work out for anybody.
All right, I'm going to tell you something I believe, Dan, and you tell me, am I wrong or am I right on? I'm following this case. I'm hearing rumblings of this wide net that's getting cast, which includes private investigators being, fanning out across the Big Ten. It's schools giving up dirt on each other now. I think Tony Petitti needs to step in, rein in the coaches, the athletic directors, and say, okay, we're going to revisit all this privately coming up shortly. But what are we doing? Are we gonna burn down the conference? Like, I feel like this is, I don't know if there's ever been a greater need for leadership than right now in the Big Ten.
That would have been better off like 3 weeks ago, yeah. But absolutely, it's a battle royal now. And like, look, if you're going to say that, because again, this will go, I know we're talking minutia, but this is the kind of stuff that gets defined in a legal case. If you're going to say this type of if you say in-person scouting requires an indefinite suspension of a head coach. So maybe what Purdue did isn't quite as bad, but is it 3/4 as bad? Is it half as bad? I don't know. Or maybe it's worse. That's anyone's debate. I have no idea. But once you set that thing down, they could have walked right in and they're going to end up with 10 schools on probation because they didn't think anything through. I don't think that would happen. But once you take a hard line on something that kind of everybody's doing and they admit it, I mean, they're just emailing stuff to each other. Are we running through everyone's computers? Are we seizing computers to see who else knew? Are we doing all that? Once you go down that line, there's a lot of exposure going on. And right now, the entire league is dropping dimes on each other. They are looking for who bought tickets where, what's this guy doing. It's not just this. Well, who else is Ohio State and Rutgers conspiring against? Is that even a deal? What is happening? No one trusts anybody right now. The whole league, it's like a battle. It's like those old wrestling battle royals.
Yeah.
And I think like Oregon and USC are staring from the West Coast going, what in the world? Like the Midwest is burning. So this is not a great deal. They may get Harbaugh, but it's like, dude, there's got to be an after. You got to think one step ahead. You got to think 10 steps ahead. I don't know that anybody thought 10 steps ahead.
Dan, thanks for your time. You can read his stuff at Yahoo Sports, and you can also listen to the College Football Inquirer podcast, which is always entertaining, if nothing else. You guys do have fun.
Yeah, we do. Thank
Dan,
you.
We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Dan.